Now, good morning, students. Today, the topic which we are going to start is teacher assessment. Now, what do you mean by teacher assessment? Teacher assessment is a concept which we are talking about since independence. Now, what they are saying, the educational reforms makers, educational political thinkers, they are saying that educational reform suggested that the best way to improve the results of education is to ensure that students have effective teachers. What they are saying that improvement in education system will only be possible when we will ensure that students have effective teachers to teach. For that, they have made or they have emphasis on teachers assessment. Okay. Now, what are the learning objectives of today's topic? The learning objectives of today's topic is the student will be able to know the concept of teacher assessment. Second one is the student will be able to know the meaning of teacher assessment, that what is the exact meaning of teacher assessment. The student will be able to know the purpose of teacher assessment. Now they will say what is the purpose of teacher assessment. So we can say that purpose of teacher assessment, that it will improve the professional development of the teacher. Means for the professional development of the teacher assessment is needed. The student will be able to know the use of teacher assessment, why we use a teacher assessment, what are the uses of teacher assessment. The student will be able to know the concept of feedback process. And the second one, last one, is the student will be able to know the meaning of feedback process. Now what the today we are going to discuss the two topics. The first one is teacher assessment and the second one is feedback process, why feedback process is necessary. Now, teacher assessment. In recent year, a growing number of elected officials, policymakers, and educational reforms. Now, what they are saying in the recent years means in the present time, number of policymakers, those who are making the educational policies, and educational reform means those who are working in the qualitative improvement of the education, have argued that the best way to improve educational research. Now, what they are saying, the best way to improve educational results of what students is to ensure that students have effective teachers. Now, what they are saying, that the educational results of students will be improved. Yeah, will be improved only when we ensure that students have effective teacher. Now, how to measure whether that teacher or this teacher is effective or not? By the teacher assessment. And that one way to ensure effective teacher is to evaluate and compensate educators. Now, what is that? They are saying that how we will ensure that this teacher is effective or not. For that, we have to make an assessment or to evaluate that teacher performance and compensate educators at least in part based on the test scores their students achieve, and at least based on the test scores their students achieve. If the students is achieving more than what we have think that the students will achieve, out of 100 they will achieve 50 or 60, but now they are achieving 70 or 80, then we can say that teachers are effective teachers because the students are achieving high scores in the test. By basing a teacher's income and job security on assessment results, the reasoning goes. Administrators can identify and reward high performing teachers. What they are saying, that administrators, the school management or the college management have to identify that these are the teachers who are performing well in the teaching learning process, and we can give them the reward in the for the efforts they are making in the teaching learning process, and reward high performing teachers or take steps to either help low performing teachers. Now, the high performing teachers means those who are performing very high in the teaching learning process, means their teaching learning process is very effective, they are very efficient. Now, they can help what? Those teachers who are either low performing, means they are not very efficient, or their results are not up to the mark. Improve or remove them from schools. Now, what they will do, that on the basis of their assessment, on the basis of the teacher assessment, what they will do, they can either reward the teacher on their performances. Second thing, they can ask the high performers teachers to help the low performing teachers. Or the third thing, what they can do, or remove them from schools. The low performing teachers will be removed from the schools. Growing political pressure, coupled with the promise of federal grants, promoted many states to begin using students' test results in teachers' evaluation. Now, what they are saying, that what is the basis of assessing a teacher's performance? The basis of assessing a teacher performance is how a student is performing in a test. What are the results of the students? If the students are performing better, if the students results are improving, then we will say that that teacher is effective, that teacher's teaching learning process is effective, and he is helping the students to gain high grades, means the teacher is involved in the teaching learning process. Means the criteria of assessing the students performance is the test results of the students. Now, this controversial and highly continuous reform strategy generally required fairly complicated statistical technique known as value-added measures or growth measures to determine how much of a positive or negative effect individual teachers have on the academic achievement of their students. Now, what they are saying, ki it's a very controversial subjects ki to what is the controversial subjects, to assess the teacher performance on the basis of the student's performance. How you can judge a student's performance on the basis that the students is performing like that, means you are assessing or evaluating a teacher, that the teacher teaching learning process is not effective. Now, negative effects individual teachers have on the academic achievement of their student based primarily on student assessment result. Is it clear? Now we are focusing just on what the students are getting, what are the test scores of the students. Teachers are considered to be the most important resources responsible for the quality of education system. Now, what they are saying, that teacher is the essential factor or the important resource who is responsible for the improvement in the quality of education system. They play multiple roles. Now, the teacher plays multiple roles. To discharge their responsibilities, means the teacher has to play various roles in discharging their various responsibilities. These include designing and preparing lesson. The first one is they have to prepare their lesson plan. Facilitating learning of all students, means they will encourage, they will motivate students to take part in the learning process. Creating a conducive learning environment. What is that? To create an environment, to develop an environment which is helpful for the students. Linking the community with the education. Contributing to school development, how the school development, the school progress can be done with the help of the community members, and at the same time remaining engaged with their professional development activities. And the last thing in which they are involved is that the professional development activities. Now, what are the professional development activities? They can participate in the seminars, they can participate in the FDPs, they have to participate in that. Because of that, they are engaged in their own professional development activities also. Mostly teachers are highly skilled. motivated and well resourced to perform to their best abilities. However, provision of need-based support to the teachers has been enhancing the quality of education. Means quality of education is improving when a provision has been made for support to the teachers. Since independence, many commissions and committees on education have been highlighted the need for teachers appraisal. Now what they are saying, that many commissions since independence, since we got the independence, many education commissions, many educational committees have been highlighted the need for teachers appraisal. Now teachers appraisal, the teachers evaluation. National Policy on Education (NEP) 1986 highlights that a data-based, open, transparent, and participatory system of teacher appraisal should be evolved. What the National Policy on Education recommended, that a data-based, open, transparent where there is no biasness, and participatory system of teacher appraisal should be evolved. Appraisal should be evolved means a teacher evaluation system should be there. This recommendation of NEP 1986 intend to consider teacher appraisal as an instrument for their professional development and not mere as a administrative tool. Now what is that? Not as a mere administrative tools means they cannot remove, the management cannot remove the teachers from their job on the basis of their educational appraisal, on their teachers appraisal. Means it will work as a tool or an instrument which help them to develop their professionalism. They have to, the self appraisal of the teacher will work as a professional tool. They will help them to develop their professionalism, uh, how to grow in professional, how to develop their professional life. But they cannot be mere administrative tools. Means the administrator or the management cannot use that the appraisal to remove the teacher from their jobs. National focus grow on teacher education for curriculum renewal 2006. Now another commission which was formulated in 2006, what it highlights? It highlights that teacher needs to recognize themselves as professional endowed with necessary knowledge. Means necessary knowledge should be there in the teachers. Attitude for teaching, competencies, abilities, commitment that I will perform very well in the teaching learning process, capability of reflection, and be sensitive and perceptive to not only the learners and institution but also the emergent concerns in the larger social perspective within which one functions. Now what they are saying, that we the teachers not only should be sensitive and perceptive to the learners to whom he is teaching, but her concern should be in the larger scale to the social perspective. Means to the what society is needed, what was the expectations of society from the teachers. The documents highlights the importance of reflections of one teaching activities for becoming more human and professional in the field of teaching. National Knowledge Commission in 2006-9 means another commission. What he says about the teachers assessment, paid attention to evaluate teachers. Now what he is saying, that we must focus on what, how to evaluate teachers, how to assess the performance of the teachers. Evaluating teachers' performance, which is to be supplemented with adequate feedback. Now, with adequate feedback, feedback can be taken from the students, the feedback can be taken from the parents, how the teacher is teaching. This will enable the teacher to know his strength. Now, the feedback, what will happen, in how the feedback will help the teacher? The teacher will come to know that these are my strengths and these are my deficiencies, and I have to work on my deficiency so that I can improve my teaching learning process. The National Curriculum Framework for Teacher Education 2009 (NCFTE) discuss the need for improved evaluation of teachers. Now the previous commissions, what they are focusing on, that a teacher appraisal should be there. We should evaluate the teacher's performance. But what NCFTE said, that need for improvement evaluations of teacher. Ki we have to improve the process, the way of taking the teacher's appraisal of teachers, particularly emphasizing the continuous assessment of pre-service teachers trainees using qualitative and quantitative measures. Now, what they are saying, that they and CFTE focus particularly on what the continuous assessment means, assessment process or evaluation process which is continue of pre-service teachers training. Pre-service, those who are teaching before their training process, using qualitative and quantitative measures. Now they are focusing that we have to evaluate, we have to assess the performance of the teacher both on the qualitative basis and the quantitative basis. The Justice Verma Commission report 2013 also underlines the need to evolve standards and norms for evaluating the performance of teachers. Now, what again, a commission which was named at Justice Verma Commission, what he said, that there is a need to evolve standards and norms for evaluating the performance of teachers. Means some criteria should be there. On the basis of that criteria only we can judge the performances of a teacher. Now, in many countries, teachers are being assessed by supervisors, schools, leaders. Now, what they are saying, this is not a new concept. In different countries, they are using the teacher assessment concept from a long time back. Now, what they are saying, that in those countries the assessment of teacher is done by superior school leaders. Now, if I am a teacher, my assessment will be done by supervisors. The supervisors can be the principals or the deans, administrators, the management, that is head teacher principals, or regional supervisors. Regional supervisors mean those who are the head of that region. Superintendents in countries such as United Kingdom, UK, there is an institutional mechanism for school inspection. Now, what they are saying, that in United Kingdom, there is an institutional mechanism which is working on assessing the teachers and the teaching learning process. The Office for Standards in Education, Children Service and Skills, OFSTED, a non-ministerial government department, is responsible for inspection of teaching practices in schools. Now, what they are saying, that this department is responsible for inspection of teaching practices in schools, means how the teaching learning process is going on in the schools. Around 1990, teacher self-assessment strategies and or assessment by peer were promoted instead of assessment by supervisors. Now, what they are saying, in 1990, there has been a change, that the teacher assessment strategies should be reformed. Now, what are these reforms? What they are saying, teacher self-assessment strategies, how to criteria, what should be the criteria, what should be the techniques, what should be the way of taking the teacher's appraisal. Self-assessment strategies and or assessment by peers were promoted instead of assessment by supervisors. Now, what they are saying, that they said that after around 1990, a change has been there, and now they are focusing on assessment strategies, self-assessment strategies. Now, what is self-assessment strategy? That I will evaluate myself. Self-assessment strategies or assessment by peers, or the assessment of mine can be taken by my peer group members instead of what, assessment by supervisors. Means the assessment cannot be taken, but there is a change, that assessment from the principals or administrators should be instead of that we should focus on self-assessment strategies and assessment by peers. The data and feedback from the self-assessment. Now, the self-assessment where I am assessing my performance were generally used during professional development program. These type of self-assessment type of feedback were used during professional development. Programs for the improvement of individual instructional practice means how I can improve. These approaches strengthen the collective capacity and professional accountability of teachers through self-assessment and peer-assisted learning cycles. The reports of Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development OECD 2005 mentions that in countries like Chile, England, and Portugal, teachers play an active role in their performance evaluation, including taking feedback from various stakeholders. Now, what they are saying in 2005, a report of Organization of Economic Commission and Development, what he says that in these countries, teachers play an active role in their performance evaluation, means they are actively involved to know the feedback of the other stakeholders to improve their teaching learning process. And who can be the stakeholders? It can be the parents, it can be the students, it can be the peer members, or it can be their supervisors. They are feedback from various stakeholders so that they can improve their teaching learning process, a qualitative improvement. For the qualitative improvement, they are taking feedbacks from various stakeholders. Teacher assessment practices in India are mostly based on external assessment. Now, in India, we are taking the teacher assessment, but it is totally based on external assessment. The usual practices are writing of annual confidential performance report of teachers by the personnel at a supervisory level. Now, but in India, we are still focusing on taking assessment by the supervisors. Lesson observation, how I am teaching, and feedback by supervisors means teachers' feedback will be taken by principals or the administrators, how I am performing during school inspections. This system is followed in both government as well as private schools. Means school inspectors are performing the teaching learning process, they are observing the lesson plans, and on the basis of that, they will say that how's the performance of that particular teacher. And this system of self-assessment is following not only in government but also in private schools. In 2007, United Nations International Children Emergency Fund UNICEF in collaboration with Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan SSA had developed a tool. Now, we are talking about the need of a tool which can be called as a tool on the standards, on the basis criteria. Now, these two agencies come together, work together in a collaboration and developed a tool, namely Advancement of Educational Performance Standard. Means that tool will help in appraisal of the teachers, in evaluating the teachers' performance. For appraising the performance of teachers means the evaluating the performance of the teacher, how the teacher is teaching, and resource persons under SSC. In 2019, in 2013, NCRT had developed a guideline along with a tool for assessing. Now, NCRT, National Council of Teacher Research and Education Teachers, what they are saying that they again working. They are making a tool. They develop a tool on the for assessing the performance of teachers. How the teacher are performing, to evaluate the performance of the teacher at the elementary level. Means that tool will evaluate the performance of the teachers who are teaching the students at elementary level. And what that tool names? The tool was called as PINDICS. The guidelines is based on the provision stated in section 24, 29 and the schedule specifying norms and standards for schools in the RTE, Right to Education Act 2009. Now, the tool has been developed, but the guidance or the guidelines from which on the basis of that the tool has been constructed was on the basis of guidelines which was provided by Right to Education Act 2009, NCF National Curriculum Framework 2009, and SSA Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. Means on the basis of the guidelines given by all these three committees or commissions, they have developed a tool that will help the teachers in assessing their performance. Framework 2011, Appendix PINDICS can be used for self-assessment. Means the appendix can be used for self-assessment. The teachers can evaluate their performance by themselves, as well as for external assessment. Means that tool can be used for self-assessment, that I can evaluate my performance by my own self, as well as external assessment. Means that my performance will be judged or evaluated, can be evaluated by my seniors also. The online and mobile applications of appendix are also available. Means this is a software, that tool is also developed as a mobile application. We can use it in our mobile, and it also available online also. This tool is basically at 4-point rating scales. Means a statement will be there, and you have to rate your performance on that statement on the 4-point scales. Now, what do you mean by the 4-point scales? I can say like that, I like the teaching. Okay, I like to teach. If a statement is like that, now I have to rate this performance on my opinion, how I like the teaching. It can be, I love teaching, it's my job, it's my responsibility, I don't like teaching. These are the 4 options. Now I have to rate that item, that statement, on the basis of these 4-point rating scales. Consist of 54 performance indicators. Means how many items are there? 54 items are there. On the basis of that 54 items, I will able to know how I am in the teaching learning process, or I can say these 54 items will assess my teaching learning process. Indicators covered under 7 broad performance standards. Now, these 54 statements were divided into how many broad performances? 7. Means 7 broad categories are there, and on these 7 broad categories, 54 items were divided. Teachers from 20 states, United Territories have been using Pendix. Means this tool, which was developed by all the agencies, were used by 20 states in India and United Territories in India. Pendix being a tool for assessing the performance of elementary school teachers, that I already told that this tool is mainly focusing on how our elementary teacher is performing. There is a need to come up with a tool which will help teachers from all levels of school education. What they are saying, that Pendix is focusing on elementary education school system only, but we need other tools also which will help the teachers to evaluate their assessment, improve their quality in teaching learning processes, and we need to develop a lot of tools in that areas also. In this context, NCERT has developed a guideline. Now the NCERT is working, and they are giving a guidelines to all the makers of curriculum, makers who are involved in the teaching learning process, to develop a tool for self-assessment of teacher performance, titled Teacher Self-Assessment Rubrics. Now they have given a guidelines, and the title which was given by them is Teacher Self-Assessment Rubrics. Now a tool can be developed to assess the performance of secondary teachers or the senior secondary teachers or the elementary level, and they have given the guidelines that on the basis of these guidelines the tool will be developed and you can assess the performance of teachers. This tool can be used by any teacher working at primary to higher secondary level. Means now it's a tool which can be used a primary teacher or at a higher secondary level. It can be used by teacher for assessing their performances based on their expected roles and responsibilities. Now, The main area of assessment of the teachers in this tool is that for assessing their performance, means how they are performing, how they are involved in the teaching learning process based on their expected roles and responsibilities. What are their responsibilities and what are their roles? This will help them identify their areas of strength. Now, by using or applying this test, they will able to know, yes, these are my strengths and challenges. In these areas, I have to work hard when they perform their duties as a teacher. Okay, and facilitate them to enrich the teaching learning process and their strength, the knowledge of their strength, knowledge of their weakness, help them to improve their teaching learning process. That assessment result will facilitate, motivate them to improve the teaching learning process. One of the most important role of teacher is to facilitate student, means to motivate students learning and provide support to them in the realization of learning outcomes and help them to that. In this way they can realize the learning outcome. As a teacher, many a times she might get puzzled by the fact that in spite of putting the best effort, the students are not performing for the best of their potential. Now what happens sometimes, that the teacher is saying that I am so much involved in the teaching learning process, I am putting my best efforts to make the teaching learning process effective, but the students are not performing on the basis of their abilities, on the basis of best of their potential. Self reflections and introspection of teachers practice inside and outside the classroom will help one to understand some of the aspects that require further modification and improvement. Now, with the help of self-assessment tool, it will help the teachers to know how to improve and in which areas he or she has to improve or require further modifications and improvement from her side, so that the teaching learning process will be more effective and the qualitative improvement can be done. The teacher may be already practices some of the innovative pedagogic approach, means the way the methods, innovative methods can be used by the teachers in the classrooms that might be very effective for enriching the teaching learning process, and that use of innovative methods in the teaching learning process will definitely improve the teaching learning process. This document will provide the teacher with an opportunity to showcase his her innovative work and performances. Now this document means the document which will assess the performance of the teachers, will give the teachers an opportunity to showcase that these innovative methods I use during the teaching learning process, and on the basis of using these innovative teaching learning process, there is an improvement in the students. The most important thing is that this tool, being rubrics, will give an idea about what are expected roles and responsibilities of a teacher in facilitating student learning. Then this tool will help the teachers to give an idea what are the expected roles and responsibilities of that teacher in motivating the students learning. Thus this in turn will help the teacher to identify the weak as well strong areas of her performances. Now, purpose of teacher assessment. Assessment plays a key role in schools improvement and teachers development. Yes, the assessment will help the teachers to improve his performances and develop his teaching learning process. As teacher who do not reflect on or introspect his or methods and actions in the classroom would tend to be repetitive in the future. Sometimes it's say that a teacher is saying the teacher hesitates in using new innovative methods, and they do not introspect if the students are not performing, should I change my teaching strategies or I should adopt new teaching methods. She may teach a concept in the same way and may use the same examples and activities again and again in the class, irrespective of the performance of the students. Now, sometimes happen when I am teaching, I am giving the same examples. I am asking the students to perform the same activities irrespective how the performance of the students. Once the teacher start looking at himself herself, when he start introspecting her and analyzes what has yielded results, what the results he got, and what has gone wrong in the teaching learning process, and where she has gone during the teaching learning process and other school activity, he she will be able to identify the areas which required further improvement. What are the areas where I have to improve as a teacher? This process will help the teachers to identify their strength. This makes them to identify that these are my strengths and these are my weaknesses, and thereby motivating them to improve their performances. And that teacher assessment tool will help them to improve their performance, which will ultimately help to achieve the objectives which they have framed, such as school improvement and accountability of teachers. The teacher assessment can be used by teachers for assessing their performance, for evaluating how they are performing, and making continuous efforts to reach the highest levels, and to make continuous efforts to reach the highest level. Teacher assessment can be used by teacher voluntary. It's their choice whether they want to use a teacher assessment tool or not, as a source to guide their thinking, as they would be able to reflect on their instructional practices, including their areas of strength, the scope for growth, as well as available and desired support. The scope of growth, where they, by the help of these self-assessment tools, they will know that these on these areas where there is a scope for improvement. Now, key themes arising from the development of models are: student need preparation on how to use feedback and feed forward. Now, these things will help in the giving the feedback. The importance of use of variety of mediums to give feedback that enable students' individual learning style to be taken into account. Now next we talk about the feedback. Now, what they are saying, the improvement of using a variety of mediums to give feedback. There should be an improvement in using a various mediums of feedback that enable students, that will help the students individual learning styles, to improve their individual learning styles, to be taken into account. The use of teacher assessment are to facilitate reflective practices in teaching learning, means they will analyze their teaching learning process, and on the basis of the analysis they will improve. Assess and address the strengths and challenges of teachers. They will able to evaluate and address that these are my strengths and these are my weaknesses. Enhance the proficiency of teachers in organizing classroom teaching learning activities. It will improve their proficiency of organizing various classroom activities in the class, and other school related activities and other curricular activities which are organized in the school from time to time. Provide support and mentoring to the teachers. It will help, as it will support the teachers and mentoring to the teachers, that how can they improve. Provide opportunity for continuing growth, as the teacher will know the weaknesses, they will work on their weaknesses, and there is an opportunity for continuing growth through multiple experiences, the multiple experiences which he is getting during the teaching learning process. Enhance the self-confidence of teachers, because the teacher will know these are my strengths and these are my weaknesses, and this will bring self-confidence in the teacher. Improve the teaching learning process and the performance of the student. By knowing these are my strengths, the teacher will improve the teaching learning process and the performance of the student. When the teaching learning process will improve, automatically the performance of students will improve. Now, next is concept which we are going to discuss today is feedback. Now, feedback is an objective discrimination of a student's performance. Now, feedback is an objective discrimination, means it's not a subjective description. It is an objective description, means there is no biasness on student performance. Instead, to guide future performance. Instead, it will work to guide how to perform in future. Unlike evaluation which judges performance, it's not like a evaluation system where we judge performance, how he has performed. Feedback is the process of helping our student assess their performance. Feedback is the process which is helping our student to assess that this is my performance. Identify areas where they are right, identify the areas where they are strong, on target, and provide them tips on what they can do in future to improve an area that needs correcting. Means the feedback will help them to identify that these are my strength areas and these are my weaknesses, and I have to improve in these particular areas. Now, feedback is an essential part of the assessment process. The feedback, on the basis of what they are saying, that feedback is an important part of evaluation. For feedback to be successful, it need to be timely, on time, meaningful. It should have meaning, and with opportunities for students to use feedback to maximize their performance, maximum their performance, improvement in their performances. The intention of this poster presentation is to describe how knowledge of these principles have been maximized within an undergraduate nursing clinical skill modules, the outcomes of which has been the development of a model of good practice with the aim of enhancing students' ability, improving the students' ability to learn from the feedback which they got. Students were introduced to the concept of feedback and feed forward and give directions on learning from these, how they can learn from the feedback they got. Increased formative exercise were introduced to provide more opportunities for feedback. Now we are using formative tests, formative assessment from time to time, so that it will give a feedback to the students on time. Provide more opportunities for feedback means the formative assessment will have provide us opportunities for feedback, both in classroom and using multimedia, focusing on short episodes of learning. Self and peer assessment were also used to facilitate the provision of feedback. Means we can use self-assessment and peer assessment also, that are motivating the provision of feedback throughout the module. Now, these are some references you can go to learn more about this topic. Now let us discuss some MCQs based on the topic we have discussed today, as MCQs are the best tool to measure the most important educational outcomes. Now, the first one, dash are considered to be the most important resource responsible for the quality of the education system. A, teachers; B, learners; C, projectors; D, none of the above given choice. So the correct answer is teachers. Teachers are considered the important resource responsible for the quality of education system. Dash assessment were also used to facilitate the provision of feedback through the module, and the options are A, self and peer; B, self; C, peer; D, learning. The answer is A, that is self and peer assessment. The third one, dash commission paid attention to evaluate teacher performance, which is to be supplemented with adequate feedback. Means evaluating teacher performances and which is supplemented with adequate feedback. It will also provide feedback to the teachers. It is national knowledge; B, local knowledge; C, regional national knowledge; D, regional knowledge. The correct answer is National Knowledge Commission. The fourth one, increased dash exercises were introduced to provide more opportunities for feedback. A is formative, B summative, C objectives, and D learning. So increased formative exercises have introduced to provide more opportunities for feedback. Now the fifth one, feedback is an essential part of the dash process. Assessment, B objectives, C learning, D duties. The correct answer is assessment. Sixth one, dash being a tool for assessing the performance of elementary school teachers. Which is the tool which has been made for assessing or evaluating the performance of elementary school teachers? The A option is Pendix, E Appendix, C PINDICR, D. SINDICS. The correct answer is PINDICS, Pindix. Seventh one is an objective description of students' performance intended to guide future performance. The A option is feedback, B is graded, C is evaluation, and D is learning. The correct answer is A, that is feedback. Question number 8. Dash 1986 intends to consider teacher appraisal as an instrument of their professional development and not as a mere administrative tool. NEP, NSE, BSE, or D is NSF. So the correct option is NEP 1986. Now, next question is the full form of NCFTE is A. National Curriculum Framework for Teacher Education, B. National Curriculum Framework for Education, C. National Curriculum for Teacher Education, D. Curriculum Framework for Teacher Education. Now, the correct option is National Curriculum Framework for Teacher Education. The last one is DASH facilitates reflective practices in teaching learning. Teacher assessment, B. Assessment, C. Peer assessment, D. Self-assessment, and the correct answer is teacher assessment. Thank you, students, for patient listening. We will meet you again in the next class. Thank you so much.